got a big day planned. Anyway, again, my name is Stephen Lynn Bales, and today's topic is odd birds. As I said earlier, these birds aren't necessarily odd. I'm odd, but they're unusual. They're out of the ordinary for some reason. Some of them are rarely seen here, but they are here, so that's how I was kind of my criteria. The red crossbill. The red crossbill is seen, but at the top of the Smokies. It's really kind of unusual because it has a crossbill. And it uses that crossbill to open pine cones and eat the seeds in them and the pine nuts, and so that's why it has that special adaptation. The only place I know to really get lucky and see one is at the top of Old Smoky in the wintertime. I was doing a Christmas bird count in the Smokies probably 10 years ago, and hiked up the Boat Mountain Trail where it enters a pine forest right on the top of the ridge. And then the trail goes all the way to Thunderhead, which is one of the big peaks that overlooks Cades Cove. And right at on the wintertime when the Christmas bird counts happen, it's wintertime and you can't get too far away from your car because it's going to get dark quickly. But I kept going just a little more. That's what you do. When you're doing a bird count, you're not walking fast. You're just kind of walking slowly, not to spook the birds, and hopefully to count them along the way. And I finally got up to, I was saying, part of my said, go home, turn around, and all of a sudden this little red bird flew across in front of me and landed on a tree, and it was a red crossbill. The only one I have ever seen in my life, but that's where I found it, in case you just got to mark that off your life list. Oh, the Loggerhead shrike used to be called the butcher bird. It's a songbird that really thinks it's a bird of prey. To see one of these, typically you just drive around country roads here in the valley, and if you happen, and as you're driving, you may not see the bird initially, but as you're driving, you may see an insect that's impaled on a thorn or a barbed wire fence, like the poor thing committed suicide. It didn't. The Loggerhead shrike is famous for killing whatever it needs to eat that day, and if it kills more, it just hangs it up. That's where he puts his leftovers. So it may be on a thorn bush, it may be on a barbed wire fence, so as you're driving, don't follow me anyway when I'm out in the country, because you glance over and you see this poor grasshopper just hanging there. Sometimes it's a mouse. If it's a small mouse, the Loggerhead shrike can kill it and impale it too.
Do they come back for it?
Do what?
Do they come back for it?
Yeah, that's their leftovers. If they're having a bad hunt day, well, I hung a grasshopper over here. I think I'll go get it. So it's just, if you overcook at night, we put them in the fridges. We don't hang them on barbed wire fences. So that's a Loggerhead shrike. I love these guys. American woodcock. They're kind of chunky, obviously, and they have an incredibly long bill. And why they have that incredibly long bill? They eat worms. And so as they're walking along, you tend to find them. They pass through. This is a good time of year to find them. They're moving further north. As they're walking along, they'll probe the mud with that long bill, and the very tip of it will open up like forceps, and if they find a mouse or some kind of insect grub, they'll pull it right up. That is kind of odd. But anyway, so it's American woodcock. I used to lead woodcock walks at Ijams. Late February and early March is tradition when they're passing through. Now, if you want something fun to do tonight, I watch this ever so often. You go to YouTube and you type in woodcock dances to staying alive. When they walk like, and it is believed that when they do that, it's a fun. Anyway, write that down. Do that tonight, not now, because you'll be sitting in your seat laughing. Anyway, it is believed they have that funky walk, and there's even a video on YouTube that shows probably a mom teaching her young ones how to do that fancy dance. It is believed they do that to spook the worms into moving a bit. And then, oh, there's a worm under me. Wow. Maybe that is odd. Okay. So woodcock dances to staying alive. You know, I have several videos I go to just to make me laugh. You know, if you watch the news, you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh before bed. Common raven. These used to be very common, even down in the valley and across the valley. But now the only place you can find, well, they're here occasionally in the wintertime, occasionally. But the only place to truly see one again is at the top of Old Smoky. Now I'm from Gatlinburg, so I know a little bit about the Smokies. Yeah, people do grow up in Gatlinburg. We tend to leave, but anyway, I write about this in my new book, We Live in a Wonderland, and we spooked them and killed the ravens or corvids, like crows and jays, incredibly intelligent. And they finally figured out they weren't wanted here, and they moved to the top of the mountain, and luckily for them, it was declared a national park. So if you go to Newfound Gap, you'll find crows, but if you see two together, the raven is bigger but has a really husky throat, and it sounds very, very different. So that's common raven. And one reason we were persecuting them was indeed the Edgar Allan Poe poem, The Raven. I read a book about Edgar Allan, and he had worked on that poem, and he was starving and taking care of an ill wife, and that was his masterpiece, and he worked on it, and finally he needed money. So he was smart enough to sell it to 2 different newspapers and got a pittance, and they published it, but then it was published all across the country. Newspapers in Tennessee, Kentucky, wherever would reprint Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Well, it made him famous. He started being invited to speak everywhere around Baltimore and stand up in front of audiences and recite Once Upon a Midnight Dreary. And so that also made people scared to death of ravens. It's in my book. Anyway, move on. Common coot. They're certainly an odd-looking bird. And that's a photo by Jason Dykes, and I think he's in the room. And they're odd-looking, but look at those feet. There's no other bird locally, and I don't want to say that globally, but no other bird that has feet like that. It's kind of halfway bird foot, halfway web foot of a duck. So they are aquatic, they are waterfowl, and so they use their feet with those little phalanges on it as paddles in the water. They just don't quite have web feet yet. So that's look at those feet. How would you find shoes to fit there? Anyway, that's the American coot. They're here in the wintertime. They're probably, Mark, where are we at? Well, we have more. They're probably still here, but I'm not sure. We're into March and fading into spring, thank goodness. So that's American coot. Ooh and ah, that's real. That's not been photoshopped. There are a handful of yellow cardinals, male cardinals, that are turning up in the south, or I should say in the east. They're as far north as Illinois and Ohio, and as far south as Ohio, Louisiana, but it's just a random group. But this one here was photographed by Catherine Reddick, and she sent it to me. At her house, it was coming to the feeders, and she lives in Harriman. So it would not be impossible for you to look out and see a yellow male cardinal. Now, why it's yellow, it's got something wrong genetically, and male cardinals are bright red because they eat a lot of fall berries. Dogwood, viburnum, any elderberry. anything red berries. They're berry eaters in the wintertime, but the male cardinals, the more berries they eat, they sequester the red pigment that's in the berry, carotene, into their bodies and then into their feathers. So if it's an unmated male cardinal, traditionally in the spring, a female who's unmated will try to pick the brightest red male available. He's the healthiest. He ate the broadest range of food, so not only is he darn good looking, but he is the brightest red male out there. But something's going wrong, I shouldn't say something's going wrong. That's the way nature works. These have genetically they cannot convert the keratin to red. It can only come out as yellow. So it is within the realm we're seeing a whole new group being genetically, and it's weird that they're so scattered. They're all over the place in the east, not in the west, but that's a yellow cardinal that was, anyway, showed up her house, let me think, early December, and stayed there for several weeks, and then came back the next year. So she had it there a while, and then she hadn't seen it since. So we don't know what happened, but it's possible. It is, stare at your sunflower field and go, please give me one of those yellow ones. Who's next? Have you guys seen these? I have not personally seen them, but I've been getting photographs. Are these pelicans? Yes. We've got pelicans coming into the valley, and each year seems to be a bigger and bigger group of them up and down the rivers. We owe this largely to TVA. TVA changed the Tennessee Valley from a raging river to a series of still water lakes. And we've got a lot of waterfowl, including great blue heron, because of that, who have found their way inland. Oh, this is great, I love it. So that is indeed, so it is indeed very possible. This is going to be easier to find than the yellow cardinal, but it is very possible to see one of these. Their guttural pouch can hold 3 gallons. So when they see a fish, they come in and scoop, and they can hold 3 gallons of water, and hopefully that fish they were scooping for. And then they spit out the water and swallow the fish. Now that's odd. That is odd. In this country we got brown pelicans, but we're getting the white pelicans. So it's, trust me, if you live near the river, just watch. If you see flocks of white birds flying around, probably a few more weeks before they disappear back to Florida. So that's, I love that photo. Boo hiss, boo hiss. I think I've told this story before. Cowbird, boo hiss. I write this whole story in my latest book. Anyway, cowbird, they're odd in that a cowbird never raises its own young. They lay eggs in other birds' nests. So boo hiss, boo hiss. I see them, they bounce around my bird feeders for a while in the spring when nests are probably being formed. But one reason we're responsible. In the 1800s, we put a bound. They used to be buffalo birds. They would follow the moving herds of buffaloes across the Great Plains and eat the insects that the buffaloes kicked up and the insects that were all over the buffaloes' backs. So they were buffalo birds, and so they were always on the move because their food source moved. So they got used to just laying eggs along the way. But our government put out a bounty on dead buffaloes. We wanted to disrupt the Plains Indians so we could have the land. So that's what we did, and there's all these famous photographs online of stacks and stacks and stacks of dead buffaloes piled up. And Buffalo Bill got his name for that reason. Anyway, what we did then was our ancestors moved into the Great Plains with farms and cows. And cows don't go anywhere. And so the cowbirds just adapted, which is what nature does, to feed on the insects around the cows. And they've been doing so well that they slowly have worked their way east typically they follow cows. Now I personally don't own a cow, but I drink so much milk, I should own a cow. So I'm debating. So then I really would have a cowbird hanging around. So that's cowbird, black with brown head. Again, the complete story is in my new book. Move on. Oh my goodness! There is someone in this room on the front row that had a black chin hummingbird visiting her December of 2024. And it stayed with her several weeks, right?
3 days.
Anyway, can you imagine looking out in December and there's a hummingbird coming to your feeder? I really had hoped that it would come back again this year, because birds tend to go where they found good food source the year before, but it didn't come back. I'm so sorry. But there's about 5 different species, and we'll cover this next month because our topic next month is hummingbirds, that are western species that can be found in Tennessee and East Tennessee in the wintertime. And this is the black chin. Kristen sent me the photo and said, excuse me, what is this?
Something's different about him.
And I bounced it over to Mark Armstrong, who has got a federal permit to catch and ban wintertime hummingbirds. And it's to find wintertime hummingbirds, to find any hummingbird here after November 15th. It can still be ruby-throated, but there's 5 other western species that tend to show up here. But the importance of this one, this is the only one ever documented in Knoxville, or even Knox County. But it was here. We hope it comes back. We hope it brings his buddies.
Yes.
So anyway, and Mark went out and caught the bird and put a band on it. Here, that's Mark. Did you take the photograph, I assume? Yeah. And he's holding it up for Kristen to take the photograph, and you see it's not black. If the light is right, it's really a deep purple. Wow. So that is more likely than the yellow cardinal. So I'm going to get you anyway. That is a little more likely than the yellow cardinal. Look at that gorgeous little bird. And again, next month is our hummingbird class, because next month's when they come back. Osprey. This is another bird. I've really bonded with birds of prey while I was at Ijams. This is a bird I've never held. I'd love to hold, but look at those talons. Gee. This is a bird that found, again, the Tennessee Valley and all the still water lakes that the TVA created. Now they're, I don't want to say common, but fair. You see them. And unlike, we also have bald eagles, but we brought in bald eagles. TVA and American Eagle Foundation, these guys found the valley on their own, whereas bald eagle wants the nest hidden in a cove. These guys will just nest out in the open. Kroger's that way has a big electrical tower behind it, and osprey nest on it every year. So they're lovable. Look at those talons. If you're ever near the water, and in the Tennessee Valley, it's easy to be near the water, and you see osprey flying around, just watch. Just watch. If they happen to see a fish, they dive with those massive, massive claws straight into the water if they have to. They can totally disappear in the water. I've seen this locally. They totally disappear into the water, grab that fish, and then they have to work their way out of the water, and they're strong enough to lift from the water, still holding the fish. It doesn't want to leave the water. So the fish is going like this, and anyway, I write about osprey in the new book because it's my story that's dedicated to motherhood. I watched over at Sequoia Hills that at one point had a very active osprey tower out in the water, and the young osprey tend to fly away, fledge, 4th of July, somewhere in that area. And poor mom, it was hot. The day I was there in mid-June, and not a cloud in the sky, and already hot. And mom did this to shield her 3 youngsters. She kept them in shade. And every now and then her partner would fly in with a fish, and she would eat a bite and then tear the rest up to feed her 3 young. And they would look at each other like, God, no one told us parenthood is so rough. It is tough. Anyway, occasionally Mom Osprey would splash down into the water and get wet and fly back up and shake off the water on her youngsters. So that was being a mom, keeping them in shade most of the day and getting them wet every so often. So again, that story's in the book as well. That's Osprey. Where are we at? Possible. A rosette spoonbill, I mentioned them in my second book, Ghost Birds. In the 1930s, they were considered rare and vanishing. The term we hadn't come up with the term endangered species yet. We didn't have Endangered Species Act, but ornithologists in the books were calling them vanishing. There were 5 species that they listed as vanishing, and this is one of them. And I think I've told this story in this room that reason they were vanishing from Florida primarily. If you went to Florida on vacation in the late 1800s or early 1900s, the souvenir of choice was a pink fan made out of spoonbill feathers, brightly pink, and that was made illegal in 1908. So since 1908, their numbers have been growing. No one's buying fans anymore, and every now and then they turn up here. The last spoonbill I saw was in Maryville. There was a home in Maryville that had a pond behind their house, and they let birders around know that there was a spoonbill, and the spoonbill was just walking around the pond, doing what spoonbills do. They have that fancy bill of scooping up small prey that's in the top of several inches of water. I did not take that photo, but that photo was taken by a friend of mine, Nick Stallman, in 2021. That's on a river to the north of us, to the northwest of us. I had lunch with him one day, and he said, "I'm headed up there now, you want to go with me?" And I said, I couldn't, and I said, "Good luck," and that's the photo he took here, so it's possible. This is even more likely than the yellow cardinal. Maybe more likely than the black shin. But anyway, they're here, and they're pink. If you're driving around and you see them, and they're near water, if you drive around and see anything pink near water, I've not heard a flamingo being, I see those all over the lawns made out of plastic. But this one is possible. So if you see a pink bird, a fairly large pink bird, pull over and get a photograph. So that is possible.
Hey, Lynn,
Yo.
does their diet make their feathers pink? Does their diet?
Yeah,
So what they're eating is making their feathers pink.
yeah. Just like the flamingo and just like the yellow cardinal that's not yellow, because the red cardinals are eating the right thing. So anyway, where we had time, I'll be doing wonderfully.
If you look at the clock, you have a whole hour, it's only 9:20. It's only 9:20 according to my clock.
I'm just the opening act. I'm just filler. Anyway, let's move on. Who's next? I know you've all seen a muscovy. They're around everywhere. That's very common to see, but they're not native. As you can see, well, I don't know if you can make it out on the map. They're native to Central America and South America. But much like the story I tell of wild turkey in my first book, these guys became beloved in Europe, and so a company would come to South America, Central America, and capture ducks with his fancy face and take them back to Europe, and that company was called the Muscovy Company. And so that's where the name comes from. Some people think the name comes from they're originally from Moscow. No, they're not. Anyway, and then they were brought back to this country as domestic ducks, and just like wild turkeys were brought back to this country from Europe, and they actually got their name Turkey. We didn't call them Turkey. The Native Americans didn't call them Turkey, because the country of Turkey started really propagating and creating turkey. Turkey became the banquet bird of choice. Turkeys, not this bird, this bird's eaten too. and we wanted those turkey birds. So we got turkey birds and muscovy ducks from Europe, even though they both were native to here. You can't make this stuff. They don't allow me to make this stuff up. I have to tell the truth. Who's next? Oh, that's a northern saw-whet owl. I tell that story too in my new book. Anyway, the northern saw-whet is the smallest owl in North America. You can only find it on top of Old Smoky. You can only find principally along the Appalachian Trail. Reports of people when the trail was being built, and naturalists, and Arthur Stupka, who was the first naturalist in the Smokies after it became a national park, kept hearing stories that there was a tiny, tiny owl living at the top of the Smokies. And eventually they discovered, oh my gosh, that's right, it's real. It's real. So that's a northern saw-whet owl. I've never seen one in captivity, which means that no one was never injured and found and taken to be in captivity. Zoe, you're going to see in a bit, was injured, and that's how come she's in captivity now. But anyway, I've never seen one of these little guys. If you can imagine, Lisa Thomason had screech owls in here, and they're about that big. An owl smaller. So they're tiny, tiny, tiny owls that live at the top of the Smokies. Now, if on your life list, you say, Stephen Lynn, I just got to find a saw-whet owl. I said, okay, it's possible, it's possible. You have to go to somewhere along Newfound Gap or out Cleanmanstone Roads. That's no longer, I don't know if they changed the name of the road or the name of just the point, anyway, excuse me. And stop along the way there, mid-May to early June. And you get out, see if I've got it loaded here properly. Because they make an you ready for this?
Northern saw-whet owl.
Would you even know that was an owl? And a little bitty owl. Okay. Shush. No more. Okay, that's the northern saw-whet owl. In the book, I do tell a story of going to find it, where I found it, and how if you go to all those extremes, take a recording of a northern saw-whet owl and find a pullover out Cleanmanstone Road, and right about dark. I've even led groups up there and not been able to find it, but I think I've been successful twice. And you play the recording, just set in the grass, a little bit away from the trash can, and just set in the grass and play that sound. And if you're lucky, you'll hear the sound coming back. The northern saw-whet that's guarding his territory at that time, in mid-May to early June is the time frame, will think it's got an intruder, and it'll get closer to you and closer to you, making the same sound. And eventually, if you're lucky, you'll look up and it'll be a branch looking down at you going, we're not owls. Anyway, that's where you find it. It's petite, and you typically see them in the dark too, like most owls are active at night. So that's northern saw-whet. Oh my goodness. Just like the other water birds that have found the Tennessee Valley, we now have gulls. And quite a bit of gulls. I think it was the 1950s they first showed up here, and they're not gulls that came due west from Myrtle Beach. They're actually been tracked now to have come down from Cape Cod, and at some point in our history in the 1950s, they got blown inland and found the Tennessee Valley in water, and so they stayed. And so the most common one, if you're out counting gulls, the most common one you'll see is the ringbill, little ring around the bill, but I'm just saying it is the most common. There's actually two other species, the Bonaparte's gull, which is smaller, and the herring gull, which is bigger. But as a general rule, if you're just out doing a bird count, you can scan a group of gulls on the shoreline or wherever, and if there's a small one or a tall one, that's the one, oh, there's a herring with it. But typically it's always ringbill. Brown-headed nuthatches. Anybody had one at their feeder? Yo, look over here. Oh, you too? You're amazing. And you live in the city.
I live right over the hill.
Yes, we're all going to Christina. Anyway, I had them one time. They're much further down normally, but you can see they do work their way up occasionally. But this is, it used to be defined that human beings were the only species that can make and use tools. That's what we were defined at. Oh my gosh, this is the only North American bird that can make and use tools. Like other nuthatches, they work their way up the bark of a tree, eating spider eggs, whatever's in there, an insect that's hiding in there, a sunflower seed that's been hidden there by a chickadee. But they will look for sticks or pieces of bark to flick up the barks and the scales off the tree. And oh my gosh, your spider egg. So this bird, as I've said, so I shouldn't make it definitive. So far, it's the only bird in North America we know that will make and use tools. It used to be only us. Anyway. Common nighthawk. I've read that this is a species that's dropping in numbers. They're insect eaters. Most, my phone's going crazy. Anyway, most of the birds that are not doing well, that are declining in population, are insect eaters. So get rid of your pesticides, just get rid of it. You're killing bird food. Anyway, common nighthawks are not hawks, and they're becoming not common. But because they fly around night, they are night. Typically, they're kind of urban oriented because they love bright lights, like a baseball field or anything that's got bright lights, because insects, moths and things are flying around those bright lights. And you'll hear this bird coming in, peep, 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 and it's grabbing all the insects. That's one reason they're declining, because they're insect eaters. They're actually related, their nightjars are related to the whippoorwill and chuckwill's widows. And those two birds are declining in numbers as well. So if pesticides were the worst things we ever invented, we finally got rid of DDT and got the eagle brought back, and the osprey. I should have mentioned that. We almost lost the osprey because the same thing, the bald eagle was the one that got most of the publicity, but other birds, like the osprey, were declining in numbers because they were getting insecticides that were washed down and taken in by the fish. Hush. Okay, that's common nighthawk, but fairly large bird, so I can understand why it's called a hawk. They do nest around urban areas. Any building that's got a flat roof, they will nest on top of it. So it's a urban kind of nighthawk, urban kind of nightjar, which is a broad term for whippoorwills and chuckwill's widow. You can really see that white patch that's on the underside of the wing. Ruffed grouse, also once known as thunder chicken. That's my wrestling name. I don't want to wrestle, but I'll do it. Thunder chicken. I have only seen one in person. I was camping out on the North Carolina side and walking along about dark and hear one of these things just walk in front of me. It's a grouse, which means it's on the ground most of the time. But this is a bird when the males are claiming territory and wanting to attract females, they have this, they use their wings to make a sound. And you'll be camping way up there and hear what sounds like a motorcycle cranking up. So that's why it's called thunder chicken. So if you I'm gonna get a t-shirt that says thunder chicken. Anyway, if you camp and you hear this strange sound, It's not a motorcycle or a bear on a motorcycle. It's this bird usually standing on a log making this sound. Thunder chicken. Where we at? I think it's time for us to talk about vultures a little bit. That was a key word there. Anyway, I'm going to talk generally about vultures in our area. Generally, and Michelle will be back in when I finish with the real thing. And as Tiffany said when we started, keep it very, very quiet. Zoe is nervous. This is a major deal for Zoe, so just be very quiet and admire her. But let me do some general vulture. That is a photograph of the bird you're getting ready to see. That's Zoe. I think I took that when she first came into Ijams 20 years ago. And so we have two species of vulture in our area. We have turkey vulture, and we think it was named that way because it kind of looks like a wild turkey in the face. And then a black vulture, which has black skin rather than the red skin, in its face and head. For a bird, the hardest thing they preen constantly. You've seen birds out cleaning their feathers. The hardest area is the top of their head. How in the world can you clean your own top of your head if you're a bird? And so it is believed that vultures, as a rule, don't need the feathers on their heads, so they've dropped them all off. They're always off, and because those feathers would get gummed up by the roadkill they're eating. So that is a general theory in that the feathers are gone, so they don't have to clean their noggins. But if you see vultures, I've often said if I get to come back, I want to come back as a vulture. Most birds get up like this morning early, but vultures get up around 10 o'clock. And they say, I got food. And first thing they do, and I've watched Zoe do this hundreds of times, they'll get in the sun and just warm up, but also they hold their noggins to the sun, so if there is any possum debris still laying up there, the sun will bake it off, and they warm up. Now in the wild, around 10 o'clock, the warm air thermals start to rise from the ground. And so if you're a vulture and you're in a tree somewhere, and you've got that possum stuff off your noggin, you'll just launch yourself out and slowly ride up in the sky on that warm air thermal. Now, turkey vultures are a little different from black vultures in that turkey vultures can smell their prey. If they're drifting over your neighborhood and that poor little squirrel was run over, they smell it. And most birds, just about all birds, do not have a strong sense of smell at all, but turkey vultures do. It really behooves them. And so once they've got that, once they whiff that poor squirrel, they'll start down. Now, black vultures, they do not have a strong sense of smell, but they will watch the turkey vultures. The turkey vultures are, turkey found something, let's go down. Oh, it's only a squirrel, there's not enough room, not enough for both of us. So typically black vultures look for bigger prey. I was driving down Maryville Pike about 3 weeks ago, and a raccoon had been hit right, and it was laying dead right in the middle of the road. And these black vultures kept trying to get down to eat it, but a car would come by. So I pulled over and I dragged the poor dead raccoon out of the road. I told you I was odd. And over to the side, out into a field, and the blacks were going, thank you, and they came down and got it. So anyway, typically a black will go after bigger prey. It's laying dead somewhere. And the turkeys will go after a smaller prey, but they do love possum. And that's a broad view of vultures. So now everyone just be quiet and meet Miss Zoe with Michelle.
Rarely clap, he says.
And Zoe is nervous. Michelle isn't.
But she's gonna show off that beautiful 8-foot wingspan. As she gets a little. Get back up there, girl. This is Zoe, and she is a turkey vulture, and she is making some nervous noises. And she is an animal ambassador over at Ijams Nature Center. She's been there since 2006. She was hit by a car in North Carolina while she was eating some roadkill, and ended up at the American Eagle Foundation. Years ago, American Eagle Foundation used to rehab raptors, so she was rehabbed there. She did fully heal, but in the time she was there, she had imprinted. So imprinting is when a bird or an animal will start associating humans with comfort and food. And vultures are pretty easy to imprint because, especially turkey vultures, because they have strong familial bonds. So she became imprinted and associates people with comfort, so she couldn't be released. Yeah, walk up to the wrong person, they're not going to understand why she's approaching. So she has been hanging out at Ijams, and I've been working with her for about 8 years. And about 3 years ago, when our animal care coordinator moved on to a different job, I was chosen as her as her next friend. So we have a good trusting relationship. We work well together. Every spring she'll do a mating display to me.
Again, I was with Ijams for 20 years. I was there when Zoe arrived. And we learned early from other people that, hi Zoe, had vultures that they tend to imprint on one person. And at Ijams, over those 20 years, it was always a female that worked there, so they're smart. And and those females, Pam, Louise, Mabry, would take Zoe around the front of the building, the plaza of the building, and Zoe was fine with that. But Michelle was the first to say, hey, let's get Zoe out into the world. So this is a major deal. I'm thrilled to see this. I have fed Zoe, and she never imprinted on me enough to, and I've had her on the glove inside her enclosure, but she wouldn't let me leave the enclosure. One reason that you need to be very quiet, because I forgot to mention this earlier, her defense, if she gets scared, is to puke on you. Because they tend to eat a lot, and what they don't swallow, they store in her crop. And so if she gets upset, and I've seen that, and I saw that headed at me at one point. I said, okay, no, I don't need to be puked on. Anyway.
I say the front 2 rows, you're in the splash zone. So. We did fast her yesterday just in case, because it's not a response she controls, much like the possums. It's an adrenaline rush that just causes her to do that. She doesn't consciously do it. It's just when she gets scared enough, she'll do it. She's doing really well.
Why weren't you able to release her?
Because of her imprints. So she approaches people. She, thinks of people as other vultures. And she, not everyone's a big vulture fan. No.
If you've been here for Lisa Thomason, she's got a barn owl, and that barn owl was imprinted. It was illegally taken from its nest as a youngster, and which is illegal. And somebody in East Tennessee was raising it like a pet, and so Thistle, that's the bird's name, imprinted, and so TWRA came knocking on the door, and it could not be released as wild. Zoe couldn't be released as wild. She would try to probably zone in on Ijams and turn up right in front of her enclosure. But the barn owl was imprinted, and now the barn owl's imprinted on Lisa.
Yep.
Which just means they're comfortable. It's just like any pet. Any quiet questions?
How much does Zoe weigh?
She's about 4 pounds.
4 pounds.
Yeah.
That's the incredible
That's
thing.
the extra.
The incredible thing, these massive, a local bald eagle weighs 9 pounds. A local red-tailed hawk weighs 3 pounds. So they look massive and it looks like they're heavy. It looks like they're very heavy, but no.
But when they're teetering on your hand, they're pretty heavy.
Yeah, that's the other thing about becoming a handler like I was at Ijams. You gotta get used to holding your hand like this with 3 to 6 pounds on it. Any other questions? Yes.
You may have said, how old is she and how long will she live?
She's 20. I mean, we know she's 20 because we don't know how old she was before, do we?
She's 28 now.
She's 28. She's ready for college.
And
Any oth-
their lifespan, how long?
Oh, do we know the lifespan? That I don't know.
General lifespan is 25 years, but in
That-
captivity, it can go a lot longer. American eagle has a 40-year-old, so with good care, we don't know.
Because they're well taken care of, they get veterinary care 3 or 4 times a year. They're fed daily. So most birds of prey like that live much longer lives in captivity. They've given up some freedom, but they have constant food. One of the interesting story about tiger who recently did pass away from old age. Some people came into Ijams late one night and cut away. They felt so sorry that bird was in captivity. They cut away. A tiger could have flown away. The tiger, I'm not going anywhere. They bring me food every day. So once they've been printed and they're in captivity, they're well cared for, and they don't really want to go out into the world. Any other? Yes, I hear.
So they hang out together a lot, right? They love a big group.
Yeah.
I've seen, one time I saw on the side of the road, there must have been 100 of them. All of, but I don't know if they were
Yeah,
that kind or the black, but.
yeah, they have a strong family bond, that they stay together. Even Lisa said that she had a vulture she had in rehab, and the family showed up and sat around her property the entire time that vulture was in rehab.
Yeah, one way you can tell them apart, because when they're flying overhead, you can't see the head. You can't see that color. Pay attention, if Zoe lifts her wings, all the secondary feathers are white or very light in color. So that's how, if you're driving down the interstate and you're watching a vulture, if this is light, you know it's a turkey vulture, whereas the black vulture has white spots around the base of the primary feathers.
Forever preening.
And you will more than likely see, like ring-billed gull, more than likely it's gonna be a turkey vulture, but we have both.
Question. How do you keep Zoe from getting nervous when you probably have to put her in a vehicle?
She's done really well. We've done a lot of work of training her and practicing. It took me months to prepare her to get ready for that, just going on short walks outside the enclosure, practicing putting her in the in the travel carrier. We did get a new travel carrier. We found out she likes being able to see, and that makes sense. She's a raptor. She can see really far. She wants to be able to see where she is, and she prefers that carrier. But she does really well.
Do you think she realizes that Tiger's gone? Could she smell him? Does she miss Tiger?
She hasn't shown, they've always kind of been indifferent to each other. She's probably noticed she hasn't heard Tiger as much and probably can't smell Tiger over there. But they weren't really, it looked like they were connected in there. They were housed separately. So they weren't in contact with each other. They weren't bonded at all.
What kind of noise do they make? Do they make a noise, a call? Or
They don't have vocal cords, so the best she can do is like a little grunt. She made a little bit of one, I don't know if the front row heard, when she saw the pinky, she made a little bit of a grunt noise. That's about all they can muster.
They're good grunters, yeah.
Yeah, but she grunts a lot when she's happy.
Like I do.
Do they remember people other than the person they're in front on? Like, she keeps watching.
I was saying that too. She keeps looking at Lynn when he talks, so I think she remembers Lynn.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's imprinted because I did feed her occasionally. So, and she recognizes my voice, so I think she says, "Where you been?" But anyway, I'm retired, so. But she does remember. Tiger remembered when I go back and visit her, and the barred owl we had there, Stay Puft, would remember me very well. And so they remember. Yes.
What's their general diet in captivity and how much do they eat?
So we buy frozen feeder rats, and so she gets 2 rats a day, 6 times a week. We have 1 fasting day to help her digestive system kind of settle and sort itself out. Animals in the wild don't get to eat every day, so a fasting day always is a good idea. That's the risk that's going.
Any other questions? Yo.
It's more of a comment. We had a dead skunk in front of our house, and we called TWRA to see if they could remove it. And they sent 2 vultures. And I know one of them grabbed the skunk and took it over, and it was still in the road, but it was under a tree where it was in the shade. And the other vulture sat under the tree while the first one ripped it up and got pieces of it. And then he moved back and she went in and ate. It was so cool.
What's the song, Dave? Skunk in the middle of the road? Yeah, skunks get hit too. You can smell. But anyway, thank goodness for vultures. That's their job, is to clean up all of our mess.
Hey, Michelle. Talk about all their adaptations for how clean they are. Whoop.
No, you do that.
I have a quick question. How do they keep cool?
Oh, yeah. So, they have uric acid in their urine, so they will actually poop on their legs to help keep cool. But uric acid is the same thing that's in hand sanitizer, so they'll also do that to clean their feet off after they've been inside a carcass. It keeps them really clean. Also, that bald head, not having any feathers on it, helps keep them clean because they gotta dive down into gross stuff. Birds aren't very good at keeping their heads clean, so having it bald helps out. And you can also see straight through her nose.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't get any gore in her nose. And that helps her to smell up to 1.5 miles away. It just flows through when she's going through the air. And another great thing is their stomach acid will kill most diseases. Their stomach acid has a pH that's equal to that of battery acid. So when they're eating carrion that may have died from rabies, botulism, distemper, anything like that, that disease will die inside of them. They found in various countries where the vulture populations are much lower, they're seeing an uptick in rabies.
Any other questions? Over here.
I was just, because you said that her being a raptor, and so vultures are considered raptors even though they don't actually go kill their own prey?
Yes, so birds of prey are carnivorous birds.
Okay.
And you know, if they want to, if they're hungry enough, they may chase something down. I've seen her go after some butterflies.
She was aiming for her foot.
Yeah. You a little warm? Yeah.
Did everyone get photos?
You can also see she constantly is preening herself, even though she's trying to be aware, she's constantly keeping herself clean.
What about enrichment? What does she do for fun?
For enrichment, one of her favorite things is, I call it lazy motherhood. I pick up one of those Costco chickens for my family, and I'll bring her the carcass, and she picks off everything that we don't get off of it. We also like to make her toys with newspaper tubes. She's got some Kongs, like what dogs have that we hide food in. Little dog balls that have a lot of holes in them. She does love to play. Good grouse. When I go in with her, she will go and grab one of her toys and show it off to me. One of her favorite things over the winter was she had a rabbit pelt, and she loved carrying the rabbit pelt around. I think a while back I posted a video on the Ijams social media where she had this cat ball with a jingle ball. And she'd pick it up with her beak and throw it up and it would roll down her back, and she loved doing that over and over again. So they're very smart and very curious, and they do need a lot of enrichment. And that grouse there was just showing she's getting comfortable. She's like, okay, we're here. This is what's happening.
You think there'd be a lot of them in rehab because of the fact that they are on the side of the road, in the road, and could be it?
Yeah, it does happen a lot. I think they're starting to adapt. Like, one thing people will notice if they come and it's during a feeding at Ijams, she eats very fast. So, she can have a rat done in like 15 seconds. And I feel like that's an adaptation that vultures have come up with because they get a lot of their food out of the road.
Zoe is so comfortable, she's decided to preen, which means she's cleaning up. You can see what birds do all day long. They're just preening their feathers, cleaning anything off of it. And now she's preening the back of her head.
So they can digest bones and organs and everything of what they eat, or do they leave the bones behind?
They are she'll leave big bones behind, but she'll take in the little bones and the fur, and she makes pellets like an owl does.
Yeah, her stomach acid. The owls that you've seen, once they've eaten, they regurgitate a pellet, which is everything they cannot digest, like a mouse, tiny bones and fur. But vultures, most of that goes straight through.
Hey Michelle, you may have answered this. What are they
She's so
nests?
comfortable, she's breaking. She says, I like this.
They tend to nest more on the ground than up in trees. A lot of times people will find baby vultures at the base of trees and call rehab because they're like, oh, an abandoned bird. But no, vultures don't really nest up in trees. You'll see them sitting up there to look around and everything, but they prefer to nest down at the bottom.
Thank you, I misspoke earlier. Well, it happens.
Sorry.
Do they have enemies? I mean, if their babies are on the ground, is there something that comes after them?
I would suspect, but I would suspect they're very, very protected by their moms. And maybe dads. We do a talk here in 2 months about good dads, bad dads in the bird pool. Some dads are great, some dads do nothing. Average.
How about their mating? Do they mate for life, or are they?
Yeah, they mate for life.
They do.
Yeah.
Because they're hanging out in a small group together.
So if they were to lose their spouse, would they choose another one? I mean, they would.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
And
mourn a while,
yeah.
Okay.
20, 30 minutes.
And we've seen that kind of happen with the staff changes over at Ijams too.
The mourning part? Will they mourn? Like when?
Not really.
I was like,
There are some species we're now knowing, like the corvids, and again, I mentioned ravens, crows, magpies, jays, they mourn. And there's videos on YouTube of I forget which one of those was laying dead, and its flock mates came down and mourned it and petted it and rubbed their bills on it. So some do, and that's all the corvids. Again, those 4 in this country: jays, magpies, ravens, and crows. And so there's strong bonds there, and they do mourn. Oddly, and I've spoken about this a lot, I don't remember if I did it here, Carolina parakeets, which was once the most gorgeous bird in our sky, just covered with color, and the only native parrot, were all shot, principally for their feathers. But if one of the Carolina parakeets was shot and was laying dead on the ground, its flock mates would come to comfort it, and the shooter would just wipe them all out. So it'd be a pile of dead Carolina parakeets. Zoe, you didn't need to worry about that.
So do they stay in family groups, like crows?
Yeah.
So it's
I'm sorry.
You would know that when they raise the young, is it just the pair or is it the whole?
Like
the
crows.
whole
Ooh.
flock? That's something I don't know.
I suspect they have a strong bond to mom, but I suspect, and again, this is very similar to ravens, strong bond to mom, but the others watch over them, would be, I suspect, because if parent birds are killed, somehow other birds of the same species will adopt and take care of them.
What are you feeding her right now?
Pinky mice.
Yum, yum.
They're like gummy bears to her. I gotta slow it down. I'm slowing it down. Because the last talk, I fed them a little fast and then they all came right back up.
Which is a show in itself.
And on cue, right when I was talking about the vomiting.
Well, I haven't, you've been feeding along the way, little pinkies?
Little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do the males and females look the same?
They do. Yeah. They look exactly the same.
Can you bring Zoe down the UT Body Farm?
Uh-huh.
I work at UT and that's where my parking place is, it's right back there, and occasionally,
Vulture slapping over?
they're landing and flapping and.
I live near there, so that makes
Yeah,
complete sense.
so-
Well, that's part of what the body farm is
Well, I
for,
wondered if they called you all to ask.
so they can figure out, well, how about how we,
Well, I mean, yeah, like, any part of, for their research or anything like that about the habits, and I'm sure we're delicious, so. So would
anyway,
would
Dr.
even-
Bass started the body farm over near UT Hospital and close to where I live. And so any of us, I don't, are they still, do you know if they're, I've heard they've got so many commitments for, you can leave in your will, I wanna go to the body farm, and you will be laid out and observed to see if a vulture finds you or what happens to a human and how it all does. It's all part of science. And vultures would obviously be flying over it. I would be fine if I was nibbled on by a vulture. Not now, Zoe, but give me 2 or 3 more years.
Does she understand any words that you use with her?
Yeah, so we have her trained to go to a perch. When we say perch, she knows where to go there. She knows step up onto the glove. Whether she wants to follow them or not is up to her. But yeah, we work on that. I'm trying to think of what other. She knows back up because in November she gets very hangry because winter is coming, so she wants to bulk up. She gets a little overexcited and she'll jump on the door and flap. So we taught back up to get up off the door.
It was interesting, she's done very well. As Michelle started to move deeper into the group, Zoe got very nervous.
Is that why, when she was holding her wings out like that, is that a sign of her being nervous or scared?
Yeah, so when she's nervous, she'll put her wings out to look bigger. Sometimes when she gets new toys she's not sure of, she'll walk around it in a circle with one wing partially up to try to like protect herself from the new scary thing. And then also that heraldic pose you see them do, the wings out, they'll do that for sunning, but she'll also show that when she knows I'm coming in for like a checkup or something she doesn't want, to let me know, no, don't mess with me today. So it's a little bit of both.
How many hours a day do they sleep?
I'm never there at night, so
How
I
many
don't know.
hours a day do they sleep?
Do what?
How many hours a day do they sleep, was the question.
Birds, and I'm trying to, generally, birds sleep half a brain at a time. A wild bird can always become a victim. So they have the wonderful ability to sleep left side and right side is look. So I'm not 100% sure vultures are the same. I would be surprised if they're not. But it was, even a wild vulture, to go fall asleep for 8 hours would be dangerous because they're out and exposed. So most birds do, if you're out, even your backyard birds, when you're feeding birds and you look around up on a branch, there may be a mourning dove sitting up there. He's taking a nap. Wouldn't that be great? You can take a nap half a brain at a time, but still be aware of what's going on around you.
Sleeping more, great.
Any other questions, answers?
We should let Zoe go.
Yeah, she looks like she's
She
getting a
did
pan.
good, we should let her go.
And let her rest. Don't do that. Yeah, let Michelle get it. Let Michelle get it.
Oh, Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's a
thank
pleasure
you.
hanging out with her.
I think we're wrapping a little early, that was me. We had no idea how long Zoe would be comfortable, we didn't.
Wow.
But Zoe did very well, so, any last questions? And again, we do this next month, hummingbirds, all about hummingbirds.